You're listening to an episode recorded during the time Innovation Fuel was part of University Canada West. We are proud and grateful for the work we've done together, and we want to thank the university for being in our podcast. We are now excited to continue the journey of Innovation Fuel into its next chapter. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to Innovation Fuel, business podcast by University Canada West,
bringing you fantastic stories from accomplished entrepreneurs and key industry professionals. Let's explore the entrepreneurial world through local businesses and our university community.
Hello, Dave. How are you?
Oh, Galari, I am so good. And you know something? I'm thinking about something.
What?
There's all these beautiful new vehicles on the road, all these cars that are popping up, and you're thinking, Tesla, this, that. How the hell do they afford these things?
I can't. I don't have money. The leasing process and all those interest rates is too much for me. I don't know. How do you do that, Dave?
Well, it just gets me thinking, I have two vehicles. I live out in the burbs and get transportation, public transportation, it's harder. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people face this challenge. And if they're not close to transit, they need a vehicle. And Vancouver, Canada, very spread out, and we need a vehicle. And newcomers coming to the market, I'm sure, are coming here. They're starting out here. And they're like, oh my God, I got to get a car. I got to get that element. How do I get the financing to get the car? I don't have any credit history in Canada. I need to get going. How do I get that car? And so I don't know when we think about options that are available to them. You think about what types of financing options are available for them to get that car.
Absolutely, you're right. And also, that the first car we bought as a newcomer, it was a second-hand car, very, very old, because we couldn't do the leasing. It's because we didn't have any credit history. It was so hard for us to buy a car. But I think that we have a guest today. That person, Arvin Mat, Chief Operation Officer of Econommi, can find a solution for us. Let's welcome Arvin Mat, Chief Operations Officer of Econommi, and Dave Kiran to another episode of Innovation Fuel. Hi, Arvin. Hi, Dave.
Hello, Galari, and welcome, to another episode of Innovation Fuel brought to you by the people of University Canada West. We are so gifted and glad to be here to share some knowledge, some experience, and we have one person that definitely has a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience in multiple different factors. But one in particular I think we're going to dive into is into the world of fintech. And it's a very interesting area of fintech, a different way of thinking about something. But Arvin, our friend here, before we get into some deep conversation around fintech and what's going on with Econommi, tell us a little bit about who is Arvin.
That's a great question. Well, thank you for having me on the podcast. I am very excited to see what arises in our conversation. Who is Arvin? I ask myself that question, and the closest answer I find is that I am by nature a designer. If I had the choice to do whatever I'd like to do, I would sit all day and design. And my experience is in operations. I've worked for many years now, leading different teams, developing people, whether it's in optimizing merchandising strategies, operations for businesses, developing strategies, executing strategies, and everything from accounting and auditing to financials to product and marketing. The startup world has exposed me to pretty much every single area of business that you could be in. And so I find it hard to attach a single word or a sentence to who I am, because it really changes by the day and by what comes up in the business that needs to be dealt with.
Currently, you are with a company or a founder and chief operations officer of Econommi. What is Econommi? What are you doing in this world?
Econommi is a fintech. We're an automotive fintech that was started in Vancouver. We operate now in Vancouver and in Toronto. We partner with independent car dealerships in Vancouver and Toronto to offer their customers leasing. Nowadays that the car prices have gone up so much, before people with $2,000 or $3,000, they would be able to buy a car. And now that is generally only sufficient for a down payment. And so we partner with these independent car dealers to offer them an interest-free lease. We have a fixed fee model that we've developed and we're very proud of. And this incentivizes customers to buy out their car early, because with a typical interest-bearing lease, when you buy out your car early, all of the interest that you will owe in the future, you now owe now. And so with our model, that's not the case. You are able to buy out the car at any point. And on top of that, we do provide a fair rate, especially for the customers that we target who perhaps do not have extensive credit history or a strong credit history. We give them a fairer deal that the banks can offer. We make all of the software that the dealerships use, because there is no dealership software off the shelf that works with an interest-free model. That's the first half of it. The other half, where it gets really interesting, is once we lease those cars to the customers, they drive home, they're very happy, and we take the lease contract and we split it up into $100 shares. We then take those shares and we list them on the Econommi platform, where accredited investors can purchase those shares. So what happens is every month when the customer who's leased the car, they make their monthly payments, it is then evenly split up between all the investors who own shares in that car. And so this allows for investors to invest into a tangible asset, which is not typically the case. And the only other prominent, it's called an asset-backed security, that we see nowadays is in real estate. We have yet to see it really develop in cars, and we think we're really pioneering that.
But
So the Econommi is just focusing on car dealership now, right?
We do everything I just said we do. So we have three customers, essentially. We have the folks who lease the car. We also have the car dealerships. They are our customers as well. And everyone on the investing side. We take care of all of that. We make all the software for the investors to use, and all the communication, the operations, the disbursements of the dividends, all of that we manage.
When you're saying you're focusing, and this is, I think, focusing on right now, this particular, and why I understand your USP to be, is your USP is the Econommi investment platform. And that is the middle piece that connects all these three pieces together.
I would agree. Our leasing model is unique, and it does provide a great opportunity for dealerships. The really unique piece is that we allow for accredited investors to participate in auto finance, which historically, if you look at GM Financial or any of these other large leasing and financing institutions, they are very lucrative. And to be able to do this on your own requires significant funds. Typically, investors would, in some way or another, set up their own leasing company and manage all the operations and make sure people pay. And that costs at least a couple $100,000 to be able to do. By splitting up these leases into $100 shares, we make participating in the world of auto finance very accessible.
This is so exciting but this wasn't the first idea, Arvin. I think your group kind of went down the pathway of the rental car business, wasn't it? Like more of a peer-to-peer rental car element. And you stumbled onto this. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us where you came from and how you made that pivot.
There is a breakdown always on the precipice to a breakthrough. What happened was, I was not with the company. This was 5 years ago when the company originally started. It had a different name. It was called Commodity. And the team basically did Turo before Turo came to Canada. So you could list your car on the Commodity platform and someone else could rent out your car. So you could earn while you weren't using your car. And then COVID happened and people stopped renting cars. No one was traveling, but even people were unwilling to lend their car out or to use someone else's car. And so the company began to shut down. The customers took all their cars back, and the company itself, Commodity, had a few cars in the company's fleet that customers would rent out. And so my boss, he was down to the last car. It was a Chevy Cruze. It was a diesel Chevy Cruze, and he found someone to sell that car to. It was a gentleman named Chris, and Chris really wanted to get this car. It would allow for him to work, whereas otherwise he would not be able to work, and the banks had not approved him. And we were trying to sell the car for $10K. He only had $5K to put up for it. And my boss was very interested in giving this car to Chris and having him be able to work again. And so he called up some of his buddies from university, as this type of stuff normally goes. And my boss was able to get a few of his buddies to basically put up the other 5K of the lease. And this contract sort of naturally came up. My boss is kind of throwing some sort of terms together of, okay, well, you can put a $5,000 down payment, and then these, 6 other people are going to put down the other 5K, and then you're kind of borrowing from them, and you're going to pay them back. And so it was really in that first lease where he had to sell the car to shut down the business that came up. And then he did it again and did it again. And about 6 months later, that's when I joined. We were on our 9th or 10th lease. And at that point, it was every time someone wanted to lease a car, my boss would physically drive out to go meet them by hand. He would do the math and write out their payments by hand. And by hand, they would sign a contract that wasn't really a contract. It was just a bunch of scribbles on scrap paper. And that was 3 years ago, and we're here now.
That is really great. So for the first time, how did you identify the needs? What was the process of identifying the needs of the economy?
For the leasing customers?
Yes, for leasing customers.
For the leasing customers, there's a few different problems that specifically our model solves. One of them is that sometimes the bank just won't give you anything, or they will give you a very high rate that most people don't take. And so it solves for people who otherwise just would not be able to lease a car at all, like Chris. It also solves for Muslims specifically, because our model is interest-free and it is a fixed fee lease. It is a Sharia compliant car lease. That is also groundbreaking. We know of no other car lease that is Sharia compliant like ours is. Now, within the Sharia compliant world, of course, it's a sliding scale, what different people are comfortable with and what they consider to be compliant. And we have found, after speaking with experts, and we've had it certified by some doctors around the world, that our model seems to satisfy more scholars and more experts than any other model that we know of. And so for Muslims who even have great credit and they are looking for something that is compliant with their faith, this is basically their only option to lease a car. We've seen some experimentation, nothing structured sometimes in the mortgage world, nothing concrete, and especially nothing in cars. And so that solves a major problem for Muslims specifically. And finally, for anyone who not even has a bad credit, does not have credit. Think about students, international students, even regular students, entrepreneurs, people who have a lack of credit history, who all of a sudden now are 18 or 21 or 22, they need a car and they have not developed any type of credible history. And so the reason why our model works is that we, of course, look at your past, but most of our considerations are we project your ability to consistently pay in the future, irregardless of your past. We take a look at what your financial state is today and what it has been in the recent past, and we look at a slew of documents that allows us to project if you will be able to consistently and comfortably cover your payment for the duration of your term. And for a lot of these students, international students and entrepreneurs, they can consistently cover it. They just don't have the history to show that they can. And so it solves that for them as well.
And is there any challenges for you bring clients? What is the most common challenge for you?
For leasing customers, we have never had a challenge. We continue to be overburdened with requests from dealerships for leasing that we do not have the funds to do. Same thing with dealerships. We continue to have a wait list of dealerships that are looking to work with us. It takes no more than a 10 or 15 minute conversation for dealerships to be very keen on joining. And so on the leasing side, we have never had to go search for more demand per se. It's always been more than we've been able to handle, not operationally, financially. And that goes to some of the customers on the other side, on the accredited investor side, to have accredited investors to fund these leases and to allocate funds to be deployed to these leases. That is an area that takes a lot of manual labor. There are pipelines that we set up and flows that we can go through. And there's no clear way to automate how you find investors and bring on investors. especially when you're talking about tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of dollars. People want to talk to a person, and they have a lot of questions, and they want to see a lot of data. And so on the accredited investor side, that takes continuous conversation and follow-ups, not just with people in Canada and around the world. And so we have days where we have a 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. to work with Australia, and then we have a 4 or 5 a.m. to do the UK, and then all the other meetings during the day. And so it takes a lot of time, more than anything, to have investors really see the value in our model, and for us to assert our competency in allocating their funds and delivering on our product.
So what is your leverage to convince them, to investors, convince them to invest in your model?
A very similar piece on the flip side is for Muslims. Our investment is also Sharia compliant, and we are beginning to see some Sharia compliant ETFs and some maybe mutual funds, nothing very concrete. And we offer an asset-backed security. That is what inherently, there's other pieces to it, but that is what makes it Sharia compliant. And so in case that the investment is no longer paying them, the lessee stops paying, it's not just a matter of, oh, well, that's at the end. We are able to recover the car, sell the car, and recover the principal of the investor. And so by having it be an asset-backed security, that satisfies the Muslims for it to be Sharia compliant along with other things. And for other investors, the return that we provide far exceeds what is generally accessible to them through more traditional stocks or ETFs or even other alternate investment products. And like I said, the world of auto finance is very, very lucrative. And so that is very attractive to investors as well. There's other pieces as well. We take the leasing payments at the beginning of the month as opposed to the end. And so what that means is that we actually pay out the accredited investors every single day. It's not a quarterly payout you get. Like 7 days a week, you get a payout. And it's not just the profit that you've made. Your principal also comes back every day. And so you buy this $100 share, and this $100 share depreciates to zero over the term of the lease, because every day it gives you your principal back and it gives you the profit you've made back. What that means is if you have the reinvesting feature on, which we highly recommend, that allows for your money to compound daily into other leases, daily. Which is extraordinary.
It's beautiful. So why the challenge? Why are these investors, why is it such a hard sell? Why is it so hard to get this across? I want in. How do I get in? Show me.
Being in the financial space, it is a heavily regulated space, and the regulations differ by province to province, country to country, state to state. And so before we are even willing to engage with someone who has reached out to us, who's interested, we are clear that let's go review what we are allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do based on where we are and based on where they are and what we think they want to do. And so a lot of it is navigating the regulatory requirements that we are very keen on following. The other piece is that the folks that we are talking to, we talk to a couple different types of accredited investors. Some of them are from the Sharia compliant world. They are Muslims. They are looking for Sharia compliant investments. The way we pitch to them is that we have a Sharia compliant investment product that returns this much. The way we pitch to perhaps someone in the Web3 space, not that this is on the blockchain or anything, but is that we essentially split these real world assets into shares that you're able to buy and participate in, which is within the essence of the goals for decentralization and blockchain and Web3 and all the other different customers. And if we're talking to more traditional finance folks who are from the banking world, we pitch it as this is an investment product, perhaps, that, it takes explaining it within their listening. And because what we do is novel and unheard of, sometimes it takes a lot of explaining for it to fit into their listening. If it's someone who's been in finance for 50 years, they know finance. They've seen everything there is to see in finance. And so when something comes along that doesn't fit in what they know of finance, it does take something for us to have them fully grasp it. And so just the novelty of it really is part of the process. And the other piece is as well that we've only, and I say only with quotes, been around for about 5 years now. And we have 3.5 years of track record. We have signed about 150 leases now. We've deployed over well over $1 million now. And so in the finance world, the more money you're looking for, the less risk they're willing to take. And so we, as each day goes by and as each new deal we sign on and as our stats grow, our credibility grows. And the conversations become easier once we have more and more credibility to rely on.
Arvin, can you give me an example about regulatory requirements you face in a specific region?
Sure. And I will be aware of what I say. I will say it like this. We are a leasing company. Fundamentally, most of what we do all day and talk about all day is car leasing. And we look for accredited investors to be able to power our leasing. It's not like we do leasing in order to be able to offer investing. It's the other way around. The real core value is for those customers who otherwise would not be able to have a car. And to power that has us looking for these accredited investors. And if we decided to launch an open retail business where anyone off the street could come buy shares of these lease contracts, that would require us to get certain licenses or certain reporting requirements, or even certain sometimes there's banking standards that we have to have our databases and customer data adhere to. And those cost a lot of money to set up. And for example, if in BC, we would like to start offering these to regular consumers off the street, to be able to get the licenses and to do the reporting will cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, at least a year. We have to do very extensive third-party audited financial statements, which are very expensive and take a lot of time for us to put together, and to have the auditors understand what we do in a way where they can actually assess it. And even then, there's layers to the certifications that there are to get. And for example, we don't do marketing. It's very hard to learn about what we do because we don't do marketing. We don't solicit investors. We don't do any marketing. Any investor we have has found us or solicited us or heard about us in some way. And so part of the regulation is that we cannot do marketing because we are unregistered, and we don't want to be registered because we are not in the business of trading securities. That's not what we do. We lease cars and we find ways to fund the cars through these facilities. That's what we have set up. They're very similar to debt facilities. And it takes conversations like these to just share about what we do. And from conversations like this, people find us who are interested and they ask us for more information.
Is there other ways to look at this model in a different way? Was there a way that you could create a third-party organization outside the realm of the leasing business that could be your marketing platform and moving in that piece? And the other piece that comes to mind is like, what about the commercial world? What about the B2B market? And is there an opportunity for further growth there and further opportunities for bigger investments?
We continue to explore different ways to set up different legal entities where we can satisfy all legal requirements and fulfill our commitment to our customers. That is something that we are continuously assessing, and we do work with the regulators to explore and see what would be the most effective way to do that. There is no easy or clever solution to that because we're not looking to hide from any of the regulators, make a different entity with a different name and hide it and do that there. We're not looking to do that. And so generally, even setting up different entities with different names will still be subject to the same constraints and regulations. That's for that. About the B2B piece, we always continue to explore, as we are now, tech partnerships and strategic partnerships, where it's about the model and licensing the model, licensing the leasing contract, or perhaps white labeling our dealership software for another company to use or for a financial institution to use if they'd like to offer this leasing. And so that is definitely an avenue that we continue to go down because we have invested significant time and resources into developing our software. And we remain very open, and we look forward to having some partnerships, whether they are just for the model or for the tech or for the whole system.
I want to go back to your comment is that everyone come out of the streets can lease a car. What do you need to give a car, to leasing a car for any persons? What kind of information you need?
We take your bank statements, your pay stubs, we get information about your employment. We take a look at different geographic factors, and we take a look at your driver's license and if you're a student. And, we lease to a lot of people who are not from Canada, who have not been in Canada for that long.
Mm-hmm.
And so we ensure that you are going to pay. And if we are not confident that you will consistently pay, we generally don't reject people. I actually can't think of a single instance where we flat out told someone to go away. We will ask you to have a cosigner, and we will collect similar types of documents from them so that if you are unable to pay, we have someone else to have remind you to pay. If not, they will pay. And we have all sorts of other tech pieces in place where we are able to verify people's identities, not just from them giving us some financial documents and personal documents. We're able to verify their identity. We're able to verify their banking details. And we take a slew of data and it goes into our little black box, essentially. And we match a bunch of different points together. And that gives us a prediction for how likely you are to consistently pay.
So it's required a lot of data. So how do you safeguard about data privacy of each client? And because you're required to report a lot, right? So how do you do the data privacy?
For certain things like bank verification, ID verification, we use third parties. These are industry standard third parties that Wealthsimples and all the big banks use. We use the exact same third parties that they do to verify your identity, to verify your bank statements, even to connect to your bank account to pull your statements. We use Flinks, which is very much the industry standard nowadays. And so with those tools, we don't actually get any of your information. We get a response from the third party that, yes, it's been verified, or no, it has not been verified. As for the other documents that the customers do submit to us, our CTO has always had a passion for cybersecurity. She does all of her regular work, and then what she does for fun is research cybersecurity. And we have a slew of advisors that are veteran engineers from around Canada who support us in setting up our database and setting up our servers in secure ways to be able to store this customer information. We also have extensive governance internally where not everyone can access all of this information. And if you can, it's not that easy. And on top of that, we have systems. Everything that we do is end-to-end integrated, right? When something goes to a third party, it stays with the third. Like if it's verifying your identity, it all happens on the third party. So that's rooted from our end-to-end system. But everything else, because we make the whole software, it doesn't leave our system at any point. There's no point where, we connect to that third party, and if they figure out how to take advantage and infiltrate into what we do, that's not the case because we make every single piece of all the software ourselves. The only major third party application that our systems are connected to is our accounting software, which is Xero, which is an industry standard. And so there's just very little entry room in general by virtue of us just making all the software and having it all be connected.
Okay. So, and what is this regulatory? Do they have any things about your data security? They have any regulatory requirement for that one as well?
On the leasing side, we are regulated by the VSA, the Vehicle Sales Authority. We have a dealership license, although we don't have a physical dealership. Well, we do actually. We have one where our offices are and the customer files are stored there, but we don't have cars on our lots. We buy the cars from dealerships, but we continue to have a dealership license. And so we are subject to the regulations that any dealerships are subject to from the Vehicle Sales Authority. They have an extensive code of conduct, and they have extensive requirements, not just for the safeguarding of customer information, but also for the record keeping. They have guidelines in place for how long and where you have to keep those documents in place. So like all of our customer documents are stored, although we have access to them remotely, are physically stored at our dealership address as is required by the VSA. So that's who we report to on the car leasing side.
Thank you.
This is, is the interesting conversation. And just before we kind of wrap up our conversation with you, Arvin, is that what does the future look like? In my mind, I'm going, wow, this is really inventive. The idea, the concept, like it's a win-win situation for the investor, for the customer, for all pieces in play here. What does the future look like? Say, for an example, one of the biggest challenges we have in Canada is the housing crisis and people wanting to get into a house and buy a house. We talk about getting a car. Could this model, if successful with the leasing car, could we see something in the future where this could be something that maybe people that need a house could use?
You may not be surprised to hear that's not the first time that's been asked. Over the years, we have had many members of our community investors ask, great, when are you going to do a house? And we don't flat out say no. There are others who don't do what we do. They do tokenized house real estate investing, whether it's, I think Addie's the one that comes to mind immediately. I think they're from Vancouver as well. And I have an Addie account. I think I have some investments with Addie as well. And so I've tried it out, and it allows you to invest in real estate in a fractional way. Although on paper, what we do looks similar, ours is fundamentally different. I won't speak for what Addie does or doesn't do, but I'll speak more about our model. We know cars. I am a car person. We used to do car rentals. My boss is very much a car person. We are very familiar with cars. And with cars, it allows for diversification in a way real estate doesn't. For $1 million, you could buy one house. With $1 million, you could probably buy 1,000 cars. Yeah. And so if the one housing customer defaults, $1 million worth of the investors now aren't getting paid. But if one car leasing customer defaults, the 999 other car leasing customers haven't defaulted. And so those investors still continue to get paid. And so by having the product a much smaller size, it allows for diversification in a way that real estate just does not.
I love it, my friend. And before we wrap up today, if we're interested in investing in this, how do we get involved?
On LinkedIn, and you're welcome to message us if you're interested in learning more. We are looking for accredited investors. We are open if any of them find us. We are willing to work with them, and we have all the documents ready for if there's any questions they may have or anything we'd like to have addressed. And they can either send us a LinkedIn message, or they can email us, or they can come down to our office if they'd like. As long as they find us somehow, we would be very happy to serve them.
I love it, my friend. And just before we wrap up today, and by the way, hey, accredited investors out there, you heard the man. This is an opportunity. Start storming his door right now. So, Arvin, before we wrap up today, so tell us a little bit, a challenge that you could throw out to our listeners. Mostly our listeners, of course, are our students. What's something that they should be thinking about? A macro challenge, a micro challenge. It's something that we should walk away from today.
A skill that I have developed that has been very useful for me is the discipline to do things I don't like. It sounds very simple. The discipline to not just do the things I don't like, to do them with the same energy that I bring to things I really like to do. So, there's all the things in life that we aren't interested in doing and don't want to do. And so we do them, but enough to tick the box that it's done. We go through the motions, right? That's what I sort of say. And that's not always effective. You get the task done, but you don't get the outcome you could get. And so the discipline there is to develop is to be able to point your interest and to point your passion. Like I've developed it such that almost on demand, I can point my interest somewhere and I can bring a hyperfixation to whatever there is to be dealt with. And I mean that at work and personally as well, right? And what really, really works for me is not to tell myself, oh, you're going to love it or it's going to be great. Like, that's a lie. It's distinguishing for myself and being clear. I don't like to do this. This is why I don't like to do this. And I'm going to do this. And I'm going to participate fully. And it really, really takes discipline to do that. The way that I developed that type of discipline, honestly, was getting a trainer. Going to the gym 6 days a week, and having the discipline to physically push myself makes mentally pushing myself a lot easier. Now that's worked for me. And I think it's for each person to really examine and to experiment for themselves to see what can they begin to practice to develop their discipline, to be able to do the things they don't like. Because if there's something in life that you don't like or don't want to do, I will assert there is a gold mine waiting for you over there. If you're willing to do it, there is gold. And so that would be my challenge. What do you think?
Excellent. Excellent. Love it.
Thank you. That's perfect. Thank you, Arvin. Thank you, Dave. That was another episode of Innovation Fuel.
Thank you for listening to Innovation Fuel. We are on all podcast streaming platforms, Google, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
Visit our website at www.upenwest.ca/Innovation Fuel. Also, follow us on Instagram at innovation_fuel.